Good to have you join me. I bring in news making the rounds at this hour. Ex-Indian MP brother killed live on TV. Commander sentenced for shooting Ukrainian plane. In New Zealand, rebels say they killed at least 13 Indonesian soldiers. China's Lee sanctioned after meeting Putin, and U.S. warship has sailed through Taiwan Strait. An ex-lawmaker in India's parliament convicted of kidnapping was shot dead along with his brother while police were accompanying them for a medical checkup in a slaying court on live television on Saturday. The dramatic footage of the men being killed were everywhere on social media. A gunman was seen reaching out over the shoulders of police, pointing a pistol at the temple of the former lawmaker, Antik Ahmed, whose Tehran is blown off as the gun discharges. Ashraf Ahmed, his brother, was shot and the two victims died within minutes, while police quickly detained 3 men alleged of carrying out the slaying. According to reports, the assailants had been posing as journalists. One surrendered instantly after the shooting, while officers subdued the other 2 suspects. They had been among a crowd that had assembled as the 2 brothers, allegedly kingpins in a local criminal organization, were being brought, handcuffed from a hospital in Prayagraj city in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh on Saturday evening. After carrying out the slaying, the suspected gunman shouted Hindu religious chants. A policeman was wounded during the attack. Fearing the possibility of violent unrest in the aftermath of the killings, the Uttar Pradesh government banned gatherings of over 4 people across the whole state. A senior police official said the state government imposed restrictive orders after the killings of Antik Ahmed and Ashraf Ahmed, who were members of a large mafia involved in land grabbing and in murder cases. The state government, controlled by Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu Nationalist Party, has ordered a judicial investigation into the killings. Police shot dead Antik Ahmed's son in Jhansi city last week. He had been wanted in linking to a murder case that was being probed as part of a wider crackdown into a land mafia operating in Uttar Pradesh. Police in Uttar Pradesh have killed over 180 alleged criminals during encounters over the past 6 years. The head of the opposition, Samajwadi Party, said the slaying of his ex-party member while in police custody showed the failure of the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party to bring law and order to Uttar Pradesh. According to a report from Iran on Sunday, a court in Tehran convicted as many as 10 Iranian military personnel for their involvement in the shooting down of Ukrainian Airlines Flight 752 in 2020. But the sentence was discharged as a sham ruling by victims' families, who say Iranian authorities have failed to prosecute those ultimately responsible for the disaster. The key defendant in the trial was the unnamed commander of the TOR-MI surface-to-air missile defense system that shot down the plane, killing at least 176 people on board. The commander was sentenced to 13 years in prison, according to reports. The Boeing 737 flight departed from Imam Khomeini Airport in Tehran on January 8, 2020, and was headed to the Ukrainian capital Kyiv when it was hit by an anti-aircraft missile shortly after takeoff. Days after the downing, Iranian authorities admitted that its Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force shot the plane down by mistake after it was misidentified as a cruise missile by an air defense operator. In the Tehran court's final verdict on Sunday, it said the passenger plane was shot down by human error. The commander fired missiles at the civilian aircraft twice, contrary to the order of the command post and other instructions, the court said. The Association of Families of Flight PS752 Victims, an international group demanding justice for those killed, released a statement on Sunday saying the victims' families never recognized the Islamic regime's court as a legitimate tribunal. It asserted that the tribunal had failed to prosecute the main perpetrators of the incident, instead prosecuting 10 low-ranking officers with total obscurity of their backgrounds and identities. The association condemned the trial as a sham ruling after court sessions were held in private, with victims' families not present for hearings. Over 70 complainants from the families of victims had withdrawn their complaints before the sentencing was handed down and rejected the competence of the court, it said. The group considers the case still open and is demanding the dispute be considered by the International Court of Justice. The passenger jet downing happened at a time of heightened tensions with the United States, hours after Iran launched ballistic missile strikes on a U.S. base in Iraq, an act of retaliation for the U.S. drone killing of Iranian Quds Force Commander Qasem Soleimani. At the time, several of anti-government protesters in Tehran took to the streets to denounce the crash, with some calling for the removal of Iran's supreme leader and for the prosecution of those responsible. According to the reports of those killed in the crash, 138 were traveling to Canada. Among the victims were 82 Iranians, 63 Canadians, 11 Ukrainians, 10 Swedish, 4 Afghans, 3 Germans, and 3 Britons. Now, separatist rebels in Indonesia's Papua region say they have killed no less than 13 Indonesian military soldiers after the army sent soldiers in search of captured New Zealand pilot Philip Martins, who was taken hostage in February. According to a statement, the West Papua National Liberation Army TPNBP said its soldiers attacked 2 Indonesian military posts in the Yal and Mugi districts in Nduga Regency over the weekend. The statement said the rebels shot dead 13 Indonesian military and police officials in the Mugi district. One body had been evacuated by the Indonesian army, but rebels were still in possession of 12 bodies, the statement added, without giving proof. On Sunday, Indonesia's military said one of their soldiers had been killed while searching the area close to where Martins is believed to be held. Some soldiers were missing, the military confirmed, but the weather had made it difficult to determine their whereabouts. We know the location of the pilots. The operation has been escalated, but the weather condition in Papua is unpredictable, military spokesperson Julius Wijojono said. Distinctly, the rebels said 9 Indonesian soldiers were executed on Sunday after being captured in the Yal district. The rebels said the attack on the Yal military post was revenge for an Indonesian military operation in the area in late March when forces killed a pregnant woman and 2 rebel fighters. Herman Terayaman, a military spokesperson in Papua, denied soldiers carried out the March attack, saying the security forces were securing civilians who were chased away by the rebels, the report said. The rebel group said they did propose peace talks with the New Zealand and Indonesian governments, but for 2 months their letters had been ignored, saying that New Zealand and the United Nations had an obligation to urge the Indonesian government to stop military operations, and said peace negotiations could be conducted under a neutral third party, namely the United Nations organizational body. On Sunday in Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin and China's Defense Minister Li Shangfu met where the two praised their country's close military cooperation. The meeting kicked off Li's 4-day visit to Russia, his first overseas journey since assuming office last month. It comes as Western countries have increased pressure on Beijing to push Putin to end his war against Ukraine. Li, a general and veteran of China's military modernization drive, was sanctioned by the United States in 2018 over transactions with Russia's state-controlled arms exporter Rosoboron Export when he led the Chinese Military Equipment Development Department. According to the U.S. State Department, those transactions included Russia's delivery to China of Su-35 combat aircraft in 2017 and S-400 surface-to-air missile system-related equipment in 2018. Li's trip follows Chinese leader Xi Jinping's state visit to Russia last month, in which Xi and Putin further boosted their countries' ties and vowed to deepen military mutual trust and strengthen military exchanges and cooperation. During his meeting with Li on Sunday, Putin called Xi's recent visit to Russia very productive and said ties between Russia and China were developing well in all areas, including the military departments. According to a Kremlin statement, military cooperation between the countries was one of the most important areas that strengthens the remarkably trusting strategic nature of relations, Putin said. According to reports from China, he told Putin that trust between the two countries' militaries has been increasingly consolidated and cooperation has produced fruitful results. China was prepared to work with Russia to strengthen strategic communication between the two militaries, strengthen multilateral coordination and cooperation, and make fresh contributions to protecting regional and universal security and stability, Li said, citing consensus between Xi and Putin. Ukraine was not mentioned in either side's official readouts of the meeting. Still on the news, in a statement on Monday, a United States warship has sailed through the Taiwan Strait in what the country's Navy labeled as a routine transit just days after China ended its newest war games around the island. The U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet said the Airlie Burke class guided missile destroyer USS Meteor sailed through the Taiwan Strait on Sunday. The warship conducted a routine Taiwan Strait transit through waters where high seas freedoms of navigation and overflight apply in accordance with international law, it said. The ship's transit demonstrates Washington's commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. It added there was no instant comments from China. Beijing, which sees Taiwan as its own territory, formally ended its 3 days of drills around Taiwan last Monday, where it practiced precision strikes and blockading the island. It staged the maneuvers to show anger at Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen meeting with U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy, considering it as a meddling in China's internal affairs and U.S. support for Taiwan's separate identity from China. The U.S. Navy sails warships through the Taiwan Strait around once a month and also frequently conducts similar freedom of navigation missions in the disputed South China Sea. The USS Meteor last week sailed near one of the most significant man-made and Chinese-controlled islands in the South China Sea, Mischief Reef. Beijing denounced it as illegal. China has continued its military operations around Taiwan since the maneuvers ended, though on a reduced scale. Taiwan's Defense Ministry on Monday morning said it had spotted 18 Chinese military aircraft and 4 naval vessels operating around Taiwan in the previous 24-hour period. China has never renounced the use of force to bring democratically governed Taiwan under its control. Taiwan's government rejects China's territorial claims and says only the island's people can decide their future. And here are more stories. 4 killed at birthday party shooting in Alabama. No less than 4 people were killed and 28 wounded in a shooting at a Sweet 16th birthday party in the United States, according to police and media reports. The gun raid in the small town of Deadville in the southern U.S. state of Alabama took place late on Saturday night, authorities said on Sunday. There was no official word on what led to the violence. Sergeant Jeremy Burkett of the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency did not take questions during 2 news conferences on Sunday. He did not say if a suspect was in custody or if investigators knew about any motivation. He did not provide the names of those killed. We're going to continue to work in a very methodical way to go through the scene, to look at the facts and ensure that justice is brought to bear for the families, he said. According to reports, one of the 4 people killed during the violence was a high school football player who was among those attending his sister's Sweet 16th birthday party when a gunman opened fire. Quoting the victim's grandmother, she identified the slain teenager as Philstavius Dowdell, whom she said was set to graduate in a matter of weeks and planned to attend Jacksonville State University on a football scholarship. The killings in Alabama marked the 3rd high-profile mass shooting in several weeks in southern U.S. following separate outbreaks of deadly gun violence in Tennessee and Kentucky that stoked local leaders to call for tighter gun control measures. 3 9-year-olds and 3 staff members were killed at a private Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee by an ex-student on March 27th. According to the Gun Violence Archive, mass shootings have become commonplace in the U.S. with over 163 so far in 2023, the most at its point in the year since at least 2016. And coming down to Africa, anxiety and confusion as fighting erupts in Sudan. On Sunday, Khartoum city streets were mostly vacant of people and traffic, with both were in sight mounting roadblocks. But long queues form at bakeries and the few shops that remain open as some people briefly ventured out to buy food before returning home to safety. In the afternoon, there was a 3-hour halt in fighting to permit several of lockdown people to move and for the injured to get to the hospital. Among residents, there was shock and also anger. Unlike other parts of the country, such as the often turbulent Western Darfur region, Khartoum is not used to war. This is the first time that people in the capital have seen such clashes. Sudan's Doctors Union early on Monday said at least 23 civilians had been killed in the city, but after 2 days of fighting, the true number of victims is expected to increase. Those victims included an Indian national, Albert Augustine, who was walking in Sudan and was hit by stray gunfire on Saturday, the Indian embassy said. Let's take a short break, and when I come back, I'll bring you new stories from Nigeria. Stay with us. You're welcome back. I bring you new stories from Nigeria. Adamawa governorship poll, REC under fire, faces INEC panel today. Yesterday, opposition parties and non-governmental organizations took a swipe at Hudu Yunusa Ari, the Adamawa State Resident Electoral Commissioner, for assuming the duties of the state governorship election returning officer. On Sunday, the Independent National Electoral Commission had at 1 a.m. postponed the announcement of the state's supplementary election results to 11 a.m. after results from 11 out of 20 local government areas where reruns held had been declared. However, before 11 a.m., the REC at 9 a.m. came to the state INEC office in Yola, where the results were being collated, and announced the All Progressives Congress candidate, Senator Aishatu Dahiru, popularly known as Binani, as the winner of the governorship election. Preceding her declaration, Binani was trailing behind Governor Amadou Fintiri of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), who had formed a margin of lead of 31,249 votes. Before the supplementary poll, Fintiri polled 421,524 votes ahead of Binani, who got 390,275 votes. However, Fintiri could not be declared the winner of the March 18th governorship poll by the state returning officer, Professor Mohammed Mele of the Department of English and Linguistics, University of Maiduguri, because of the margin of lead did not surpass the number of cancelled votes in 69 polling units. The results from the 10 councils as collated as of the time of filing this report disclosed that Governor Fintiri, adding to his lead of 31,249 with wins in Demsa, Lumarde, Jada, Ganye, Song, Maiha, Hong and Sheleng, while Binani won only in Yola North and Yola South. The REC's action stoked anger across the country as the PDP and its presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar called for the instant arrest of Yunusa Ari. According to report, the delinquent REC may face 36 months imprisonment on conviction. The declaration of Binani, which was cancelled by an independent National Electoral Commission, generating tension across Adamawa State on Sunday. But INEC, in its statement nullifying Ari's action, asked Nigerians to disregard the pronouncement at the collation center. It said it summoned the REC and other officials who assumed the duties of the returning officer to Abuja. The REC will appear before a committee of commission led by the national chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu, on Monday, according to reports. In southern Kaduna, 30 people killed, houses burnt. 30 people have been killed and numerous houses burnt down again in a latest attack by bandits in Runji village in Zangon Kataf local government area of Kaduna State. The freshest raid, which took place at about 10 p.m. on Saturday night, is coming just 3 days after bandits killed 8 people at the attack in J community, also in Zangon Kataf local government area of the state. According to reports from sources in the affected area, that local guards keeping vigil were able to engage the invaders, but it took the swift intervention of military operatives to prevent the attacks. The locals applauded the quick response of the army, without which they said the attackers would have wiped out the entire community. Meanwhile, Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Aruwan, who confirmed the incident, said Governor Nasir El-Rufai condemned the attack, which led to the death of numerous people. Aruwan said, and I quote, "The military has informed the Kaduna State government of an attack in Runji village, Zongon Kataf local government area, in which several lives were lost on Saturday night." The preliminary report further informed the government that the attack was also left some residents injured and an unspecified number of houses burnt down in the community. According to the report, troops had a first encounter with the attackers and are still in general area. While awaiting for a detailed report, Governor Nasir El-Rufai, who received the preliminary report in the early hours of Sunday, has condemned the killings as unacceptable and unjustifiable. The governor condoled the families that lost their loved ones and prayed for the repose of the victims' souls. He also prayed for the speedy recovery of the injured. The Kaduna State government will update the public on the incident as soon as detailed reports are received from the security agencies, he said. The national president of Atiap Community Development Association, ACDA, Sam Timbuak Ache, on his part, established that some of the bandits were equally killed by soldiers and some vigilantes who responded quickly to the area and engaged the criminals in a gun duel, adding that the casualty toll would have been more if not for the involvement of the soldiers. And finally, on the news, aviation unions embark on warning industrial action. Aviation Workers Union will begin a 2-day strike from today over alleged failure to enforce the conditions of service agreement between the union and some aviation agencies. This is contained in a statement signed by officials of the National Union of Air Transport Employees, Air Transport Services Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, and Association of Nigeria Aviation Professionals. Others are the National Association of Aircraft Pilots and Engineers and the Amalgamated Union of Public Corporation Civil Service Technical and Recreation Services. The unions noted an indefinite strike will follow after the warning strike if their demands are met. According to the union, our unions issued a 14-day ultimatum to the Minister of Aviation and specific aviation parastatals on February 7th over non-implementation of minimum wage consequential adjustments and arrears of the Nigeria Meteorological Agency (NIMET), refusal of the Income and Wages Commission and Office of the Head of Service of the Federation to release the reviewed condition of service of Nigerian Airspace Management Agency (NAMA), Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority (NCAA), Nigerian College of Aviation Technology (NCAT), and Nigerian Meteorological Agency (NIMET), as also planned demolition of aviation's agency buildings in Lagos by the Minister of Aviation for an airport city project has been strongly resisted by our union, but the ministry remains adamant, so we are commencing the warning strike, the union added. The aviation union asks its members to obey the directive, adding that its state councils, branches and executive to carry out the directive without compromise. To refresh our memories, ex-Indian MP brother killed live on TV. Commander sentenced for shooting Ukrainian plane. New Zealand says rebels say they killed at least 13 Indonesian soldiers. China's Lee sanctioned after meeting Putin, and U.S. warship has sailed through Taiwan Strait. And that's all on the news. Thanks for watching. I am Lois Dreki.